Hello and welcome to AC TV20's Health Matters. My name is Dr. Eric Parks and I'm here today with a special guest, Suzette Lanzarotta. She's a homeopath, she's a chiropractor, she's a mother, she has many talents. She was a graduate of Palmer College way back in 1982. In 1985 she started studying and became a homeopath, which she'll describe in a minute. In 1992 she published her first book, First Aid and Beyond, for the homeopathic for active adults and children. She's been teaching with the Sacramento Food Co-op for the last 7 years.
Yes.
And she's very talented, very knowledgeable. I've known her for quite a long time. Has a wonderful patient base. And I want to welcome you, Suzette. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for talking about something as controversial and exciting as homeopathy.
Yes, it's a little complicated, but...
It is complicated, but I'm sure you're going to make it as simple as you can for all of us.
I will do my best.
So I'm excited to find out what happened around 1985 that got you interested in homeopathy.
Well, I am the mother of 4 children and now 2 grandchildren, but in 1985 I had 4 young children, and as is the way with children, there are always bumps, bruises, scrapes, bee stings, poison oak, because we lived above Nevada City, and I was looking for a first aid tool for children when they didn't need a doctor, it wasn't a medical emergency.
Right.
Just to keep people happy and treated.
So you found homeopathy, and did you find that that was something right away that you had thought about incorporating into your practice, or was it something just to learn about?
Actually, the philosophies of homeopathy and the philosophies of chiropractic are very similar. And so it's sort of when you know, homeopathy just resonates well with you because of the way that it works, and it's a very natural, using the body's own natural healing mechanisms.
Right.
And makes perfect sense with chiropractic, so it's a perfect blend.
Sounds like a good marriage there.
It is a good marriage.
So tell us a little bit about the beginnings of homeopathy for a lot of us who don't really know how it started, how long it's been around. Is it older than medicine? Is it older than acupuncture? I don't know. So tell us a little bit about the history.
I think relatively speaking, it's a young system of medicine. Acupuncture is an older system of medicine, obviously, coming out of China. Homeopathy is only about 200 plus years old, and it was developed by a German medical doctor, as a matter of fact, who was very disillusioned with medicine at the time. And when I teach classes on this, I talk about the heroic, they called it heroic treatment, where they were bloodletting and leeches and treating with heavy metals, things like mercury and that type of thing. And basically a cure, if your patient died, it was still considered a cure. And Samuel Hahnemann was very disillusioned by the premise of how those archaic treatments for disease were actually working. So he went in search of why do medicines work when they do work, and why don't they when they don't. So Samuel Hahnemann in 1810 actually published the Organon of Medicine, which is the premise on which homeopathy is established.
See, sounds like a man with vision. He was able to see that traditional treatments really weren't curing a lot of people, just making a lot of people sick. So, so homeopathy then became popularized within Germany, and did it spread throughout the world automatically, or was there?
I think it was a very slow spread. The doctors that actually began studying with Hahnemann were his original test subjects, because basically he developed the full homeopathic materia medica by doing research on the materia medicas, or the manuals on medicines of that time, and then testing them on human subjects of his time. So his followers slowly spread out through Europe, into France, into England, ultimately into the United States, into the Americas in the late 1800s. And actually we had homeopathic hospitals in the United States until 1962 or 65, somewhere in that 62 to 65. All of them were located on the East Coast and the Midwest. And it is when the AMA became a lobbying force, if you will, that homeopathy was discarded from medicine. But it was an active part of medicine until 1965.
I'll be. I did not know that.
Yes.
Well, that's really exciting information. So for those, again, homeopathy, I assume, has since been not distilled, but enhanced the understanding of homeopathy. How is it that you describe homeopathy? What does it do? What is it that helps the healing process?
It's a beautiful system where we use all of the elements in nature and some that are man-made also. And it began actually with very simple tinctures like Arnica montana and Apis mellifica, where you take a base substance and you dilute it until all the chemical action, all the chemical poisons are out of a substance, and then you use it in minute doses with an illness. Basically, it's a treatment by similars. Homeopathy, the word homeo means similar, pathos, pathology. So all those test subjects that I talked about in the 1800s, basically they were taking the raw material and producing a set of symptoms, or a poisoning, basically. If you think about it, much of it was a poisoning. And what Hahnemann discovered was that if you used that same substance in a small, minute amount, you got all the healing powers from the substance, but you didn't get the poisonings from the substance, which is why he originally started diluting, and until such time as literally you dilute all of the chemical substance out.
So that sounds like it would be a contrary opinion that if you would want to take care of a metal poisoning in the body, that you would actually give the body something that had that metal in it,
yes,
at one time, but now it's been diluted and treated in a way that it actually helps to remove that from your body.
And for example, lead, let's use lead as an example. Plum balm is the homeopathic equivalent. So if you have lead poisoning and you get that little blue line in the gum and you get neurologic symptoms and mental symptoms, you would actually treat with the homeopathic preparation of plum balm in order to move that lead out of the tissues.
I see. And in your practice, when you use homeopathy, does it stand alone, or do you use other treatment modalities with that?
I do, and what I discovered actually practicing homeopathy, I use first aid stuff as a standalone treatment. So if you come in with a bee sting, we use Apis mellifica, or you come in with poison oak, we use rhus tox. But for more intense or more chronic conditions, in our culture, people are ill and they're malnourished, and I have discovered that a lot of times the body, if it does not have the materials to build new tissue to heal itself, then homeopathy is limited by that. So I oftentimes will combine nutrition and other formats like acupuncture and that type of thing in order to set that foundation for homeopathy to work.
Right. Oh, that makes so much sense. You're providing the body with the building blocks to repair, and with the homeopathy as like kind of a supervisor, I guess,
yes,
to help make that repair happen.
Yes.
So that's a really a smart approach.
Right.
And so what are some of the types of conditions that you see? And again, I don't want to get into specific treatments,
right,
but how would people seek out homeopathy?
The best introduction to a homeopathic remedy is first aid. So, and I use this example a lot when I teach. Everyone knows we've all had a bee sting at some time in our life, and we know what it looks like. There's heat, there's swelling, there is pain, and to treat it, we use Apis mellifica, which is literally honeybee that has been tinctured and then homeopathically prepared to take away the symptoms. That's a perfect similar, because we actually use the whole bee to make a homeopathic tincture. They take those little bees, they put them in a bottle, they crush them gently, and they let them sit for 2 weeks in the dark, and then they create the remedy from that mother tincture. And it takes away the swelling, the heat, the tissue damage, and the pain. So that's a perfect example. And in our area, poison oak is like the second best introduction to homeopathy, because as we all know, the discomfort of that rash is amazing. And sometimes people get a small allergic reaction, others get very intense allergic reactions, but you can use homeopathy, you can use the homeopathic preparation of Rustox, which is poison ivy, actually made from poison ivy, in order to prevent that by taking before you go in and then when you come out of that exposure.
Wow. So does it normally, well, speaking of that, since it's very near and dear to my house and people who live there,
Yes.
When a person's first starting to notice, uh-oh, I got some poison oak,
Yes.
they would then want to take it right away
Take it right away.
to help relieve the symptoms.
And this is another one of those circumstances where other modalities make a sense, where you buy something like Technu or some sort of a soap that removes the oils, you avoid hot showers,
Right.
you know, you do all the outside treatment, but what the remedy does is it speeds the healing and dries up the rash and takes the pain away.
I see. So I like your explanation of the homeopathic approach using the acute symptoms that people have.
Yes.
And I know that there are more chronic conditions that are also amenable to homeopathic treatments. How do you go about deciding what would be the appropriate remedy? I'm only asking this because I know that there are different metabolic types or personality types even, or
Yes.
things that enter into that. So what would a person expect? I mean, what kind of questions would you be looking for?
I think that a homeopathic case history is one of the most thorough case histories that any doctor takes, because you take a look at the whole person. You look at their past history, their health history from childhood forward. I look at genetic history because your genetics come into play into what types of illnesses that you're predisposed to. I look at your current health history. We talk about your mental, emotional states, your sleep, your dreams, the physical symptoms, whatever bodily symptoms that you have. And you take all of that information and then you literally condense it down into a similar. And the way we do that is literally looking up those symptoms, if you will, in a repertory, which is a collection of all of the symptoms, which Hahnemann and Kent actually, James Tyler Kent actually developed the first repertory, but all the symptoms are listed, and then the homeopathic remedies that have created those symptoms in a healthy person are listed below. And then once you get it down to a dozen remedies, you cross-reference it with something called a materia medica, which is just the opposite. It's all the medicines with the symptoms listed below. So it's a very in-depth cross-referencing between symptoms and medicines, basically.
Does it allow you then to combine remedies, or do you try to just get as close as you can with
That's
one thing?
A good question. And there's several different approaches to homeopathy. A classically trained homeopath uses one remedy. And then if you go into the health food store, let's say you have a sinus infection, you're going to pick up a box that says sinus on it, and it's going to be about a dozen different remedies and in many different potencies. So what they've done is they've taken that same list of remedies underneath the symptoms, and they've said these are the remedies that most often come up with this set of symptoms, and we're going to combine them. And it's more allopathic, if you will, in that approach, and that just means against or trying to cover all their bases.
Right.
But generally, only one of those remedies is actually acting homeopathically. They're just, because you're not able to give all your symptoms, they're trying to pull out all the big ones and cover as many bases as possible.
I see. So unlike medicines, I'm assuming that if you buy these remedies that have many different remedies included, unlike medicine, they won't have adverse effects?
That's correct.
If it's not the right remedy, it still won't hurt you.
That's right.
But it may not help.
And as I mentioned earlier, what happens is they take that mother tincture, and this is the pharmacy of homeopathy. They take a drop of tincture and they dilute it in either 9 parts of distilled water or 99 parts of distilled water. One is a decimal, one is a centesimal. So you've got 100 parts or you have 10 parts. And they take one dose, one drop of that 1x, let's say if we use the decimal all the way, they take 1 drop of 1x, they dilute it in 9 parts again, it becomes 2x, 3x, 10x, 12x. So at 24x, you have literally diluted all of the chemical substance out of it. So the beauty of that is that you are not going to poison or interact. So it makes it a very safe mode of treatment, especially for children and animals and people on medication, because there's no chemical interaction there. What we've done is we've literally extracted the healing power and left the poison behind.
Very interesting. So can you tell me a little more about how that effect
Yes.
is drawn out with the homeopathic remedies?
I think we are finally coming to an age where the physics match the instinct and the knowledge of homeopathy, where we can take a look at how how we move molecularly and identify it. The simplest way to explain it, we've all either been vaccinated, or many of us know someone who has had allergy shots. So basically, allergy shots are the same thing, where they're giving you a minute dose, desensitizing the system.
Right.
Homeopathy basically stimulates your own natural healing mechanism. And when I teach, oftentimes I say it's kind of like a firefighter setting a backfire. It burns all the fuel, so when the fire comes up to it, it has nowhere to go. And so literally that's what we're doing. We're creating a backfire against your body's physical reaction to whatever you've been exposed to and burning it out. And the experience often is that when you use a well-prescribed homeopathic, you oftentimes will get better before you get worse. You literally have what we call an aggravation. And I know if I have the right potency, if my aggravation is just a little bit and not so much that it really makes someone uncomfortable. But for example, an ear infection, the fever may go up because maybe they've only been having a low-grade fever, which is not high enough to kill off the virus or the bacteria. So their fever goes up, makes that body unsuitable for that bacteria to live in, and then they get better.
Infection's over, right?
And then the infection is over.
So that's a good thing to, I guess, preempt a patient to say, now symptoms may increase, but that's because this is directing your body to get more efficient at that healing process.
Yes.
It might cause you to be uncomfortable or have a fever or...
That's right.
Yeah.
And oftentimes with poison oak, what I say, if you watch the spread of poison oak, it moves up the body, into the chest, up the neck. And as you know, the remedy is working because the symptoms literally get better in reverse order of onset. So the rash starts to dry up here, and then it dries up here, and then down the arms, and the last place it'll go is off the fingers and toes.
Interesting. That's very exciting to me, because I will certainly be looking to you as the season wears on with our animals that bring in the poison oak, and we have no control over that.
Yes.
I had a good question about herbal remedies, Bach flower remedies, essential oils. These things sound to me like they're similar and related, but I'm sure that there's subtle differences or perhaps major differences between them. Can you explain, how do you tell people the difference between those, and do they all do the same thing, or are they different?
Right, that's a very good question. So herbs are herbs. I mean, you walk out and you can pick calendula and crush the flowers and use it medicinally, and that is an herb. You can make a tea, whatever. The difference between an herbal remedy, if you will, and homeopathy is that dilution and shaking process. Essential oils also start as a flower or a plant, and then that tincture is put into an oil or it's created in an oil. All of those are the beginnings of a homeopathic remedy, but they're not actually a homeopathic remedy until such time as they've been diluted and shaken. So all homeopathic remedies are created in pharmacies, just like Western medicines are created in a pharmacy, in a very controlled and designated way. I mean, they literally, Hahnemann said that you take the tincture, you dilute it in water, and you shake it 99 times, and you must impact your vial against a leather bound with 10 pounds per square inch of pressure, and that's what he called succession, and I call it shaking because who uses that word anymore, right? So we're shaking it up, and then what happens is the distilled water, as we know, water is a miraculous thing. It takes lots of form. The molecules of water start vibrating at the same level as the molecules of whatever was placed in it, and we have a mirroring that takes place, and then that mirroring is then continued all the way down the line. So in my mind, herbal remedies, essential oils, Bach flower essences, those are all the crude substance, and then the homeopathic is the very specially pharmaceutically prepared and specific medicine. They all work, but they work on different layers.
It sounds to me like we're going back to that same comparison of Bach flower and essential oils maybe providing some of the materials that the body could use for repair, but homeopathy is still guiding that and supervisor for that repair. So that's a good way to think about it, because it doesn't exclude one from the other. It's just that they can be used together, and probably are in
many cases.
Let's see. In your experience, what sort of conditions do you like to treat? I mean, you see people coming in, you know, boy, if this person comes in, they have that, I'm really good at that. I really like treating that.
I actually like using homeopathy as often as I can, because one of the premises of homeopathy is that it's very gentle and it works within your own body's natural healing power. And oftentimes people come back and say, well, I don't know if the remedy worked or I just got better. And I smile big because I know the remedy worked, because it didn't disrupt or create an aggravation. So in my practice, I see everything from poison oak to bladder infections to sinus infections, colds and flus, earaches. Those are all acute illnesses. People with sleeping issues, a lot of times, where they can't shut their brain off, there are remedies for that. Anxiety, you hate going to the dentist and you're terrified, there are remedies for that that really make a difference. But you can treat everything from the smallest to the largest. Anything is possible. So I often look, and if people are healthy and they just have acquired an illness, then we treat it at whatever level. Otherwise.
Do you find that the medicines that people take interfere with homeopathy's ability to help them? In other words, if they're taking something, does that preclude their use of homeopathy? And
again, we go back to that whole dilution succession. It's there. We're treating on different levels, which is really a wonderful thing. So the only time that I let people know that they should really go back and seek advice from their medical doctor if we're working with anxiety and people are using things for depression, anxiety, drugs, because as they get healthier they may not need as much. And it's not my responsibility to make that withdrawal, so they need guidance as they do that. But there's no preclusions, actually. Asthma is a perfect example. A lot of times I work with people with a homeopathic, and then they slowly, with medical advice, go back and they go off their asthma medication.
So those would be cases where people can count on you to work with their physicians to help them. Because I'm sure that happens a lot, where a medication that they're taking hasn't really been helping them, maybe keeping something at bay. But you're providing something that can actually get the body to heal itself. But I could see a medication would be sometimes getting in the way of that healing process. Because
we're treating the cause of the problem, not the symptoms are the clues to the cause. And so we're treating the cause of the problem, and the symptoms are our guiding light.
Any other contraindications to homeopathy that you can think of?
Probably not, actually. There
No.
really aren't any. That's the beauty of what I do. I feel as though as long as we are working safely and we're working with your medical doctor and everyone knows we're all on the same page, we can just kind of chug forward on that approach.
Are there things that people can take to improve their immune system if they don't have a particular problem, but maybe they get a lot of colds every year?
Yes, actually, I love talking about oscillococcinum. That is everyone has been in the health food store, they've seen the little orange and white packets and the word they cannot pronounce. In fact,
Say it again, because...
It's oscillococcinum.
Thank you.
I wrote an article once that literally broke it down phonetically because it's such a hard, people go, that oscillo. That is actually made from the liver of goose, and it's the best flu medicine. They make it like a flu vaccine would be. They make it every year, fresh. And I often tell people, if you're one of those people that works in a field where you're exposed to people and you get coughs, colds, and flus, you should be doing other things like nutrition, obviously,
Sure.
and chiropractic. But this is a wonderful preventive in lieu of a flu vaccine.
Wow, that's great. And I have seen this, and we keep a vial of it every year.
Yes.
I haven't had the flu, thank goodness, for years, but you know, it's such a devastating illness that if you have something like that, it would be a great thing to have on your shelf. But you should get it new every year.
You should get a new packet every year.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The most important thing to remember with a homeopathic that you buy at a health food store is that you're buying in very low potency. It's very safe. The health food stores can only sell up to a 30C, and you need to repeat it more often because you need to keep stimulating your immune response. And the most common reason people find homeopathy doesn't work is because they haven't taken the remedy often enough.
I see. Okay, well...